Mate, great whites in the water. Like you've got a photo on your Instagram, it's pinned up the top. There's two great whites sort of passing each other in opposite directions. I've never been in the water with them. What's different about them?
Oh man, such a unique experience. Like there's just not much out there that can just create that cocktail of emotion that you feel when you're in the water with them. I think we've got a slightly different mindset over here in New Zealand on grey whites, just because we don't really have that sort of negative human interaction that's found in other places like Aussie. But man, it's epic. Like far out, man. If I could do it every day of the week, I would, man. If you could bottle, if you could put that feeling in a pill, man, you'd make your millions. 100%, 100%. The first time I swam with him, it was a pretty controlled environment, I think. Like we knew it was there, and we basically just sit there and we'd watched it for a little bit. Actually, I'll go back a little bit. Earlier in the day, we parked up at the spot and we were going to go for a dive, right on the change of light, and then we'd seen this thing sort of out and around the boat, and we had a look down and just sort of make out just this giant great white that had swum underneath the boat. But it was the first one I'd ever seen, and it would have been huge. It would have been a big female, just nuts. Like Dave's sitting there with the camera, like, I can't see it. And then he moved his head out to the side of his camera, away from his viewfinder, and he realised the reason why he couldn't see it is because the back of the shark was taking up the whole frame.
Yeah.
And we're like, whoa. And that was early in the day. We never saw it in the water or anything like that. I poked my head over the side without my goggles and I had a look. Without my mask, and I had a look, and I could see this blurry mass, which was beautiful, swimming away. But yeah, anyway, in the afternoon, we'd done a bit of spearfishing, and in the afternoon, the tide had picked up. We swum back to the boat, and we jumped up on the boat, and we had the float sitting at the back with a couple of fish on it. Anyway, a young great white had come charging in and just went nuts on these fish, just like attacked, circled the float, came through, hit the float as we were pulling it in. It just had like a butterfish and a terraki or something on it. And then it got angry, and it just had like shoulders out, fin out of the water, tail splashing on the surface, and it just swam straight at the boat. It had to go with the fish, swam straight at the boat, trying to get these fish, and then swam into the outboard of this big splash. And we were all just sat there and stunned, like, holy shit, that was nuts. And we moved down the coast slightly for obvious reasons, and then another shark had ended up turning up, and just cruising, man, doing laps around the boat. And one of my goals as an underwater cameraman, as an underwater enthusiast, and maybe a bit of a dumbass, I've always wanted to get in the water with a white. And the boys are all quite experienced, and I figured that everything was chill enough, so it's just doing circles of the boat, jumped in. As it was sort of coming up to the side, like it was sort of like, I don't know, to the side of the boat, and I'd slip in at the back and sort of swim along with it, and we'd just do a big sort of loop out and around. I'd sort of shadow it a little bit, and it would come back and turn, and when it got towards the back of the boat, it would turn around and swim straight back of the boat. And that's when I'd sort of backpedal a little bit and then jump out, and then it would move back out to the side again and start its loop again, and I'd slip back in. And that was incredible, man. Probably jumped 6, 7, 8 times.
Did you get some good footage?
You got some good stuff, man. You got some good stuff. Not as good as what it should have been. I didn't spend a lot of time because the monitor of my camera is quite small.
Yeah.
And you've kind of got to be quite focused on what you're looking at in the camera. But I just didn't want to take my eyes off the shark, man. It was amazing, but there was definitely a real element of fear there.
Yeah. So what, did you have your EV out or your white balance out or something?
No. Everything was there. It's just the framing wasn't quite right sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it might have just been sitting a little bit too low on the shot, and the tide was absolutely hissing, man. It was really, really strong current. So I got what I got, and it was good enough.
Cool. And then you've had more experiences. Like I believe filming South Sea Spearos, you spent a bit of time with a bigger shark or bigger sharks.
Well, no, that was No, that was with South Seas. So that experience was all with the South Seas boys.
Okay.
I've been back since. I got lucky enough to have the opportunity to do some Shark Week filming.
Yep.
And that was awesome. It was a very different experience, being in a cage, but just sort of spending a really good sustained amount of time in the water with them, and also knowing you're in a safe environment was really cool. You can push quite far out of the cage. You know, you have your whole half of your body sitting out of the gap of the cage, and they'll just sort of cruise past in front of you and push the camera in their face, and seeing the interaction of the sharks, and also having the ability to get a bit closer to some of these bigger fish as well.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, man.
A lot of Spearos are anti cage diving. Have you had these big discussions about it?
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely sort of frowned upon here in New Zealand, a bit, in a way. Like I know the diving community around Stewart Island, which is where that operation is based, it doesn't sit well with the commercial divers, for obvious reasons. But at the same time, some of the argument is that there are incredibly intelligent fish. I've got a mate of mine who's down there commercial spearfishing at the moment, and he's seeing heaps of these fish, but there's been no aggressive interactions or anything like that. And we also need to keep in mind that the fishing community, because they're worried about the association of a reward with people and mainly with a boat. But at the same time, we've had codding for generations going on around the island, chucking over cod guts and all that sort of carry on. But yeah, so you definitely see both sides of the argument. But I mean, personally, for me, there's been so many man hours down there in Stewart Island. There's been no attacks or anything in recent years on the diving community, really anywhere in New Zealand, from a white on divers or Spearos.
Where is
it? This is down at Stewart Island. So this is the bottom. So it's the bottom island at the bottom of the South Island. But it's having the opportunity to go and see these animals, and up close and personal, and potentially having the ability to change people's perceptions of these fish. They are beautiful. We do want to see them in the water, and we do want to try and break down that stigma of fear on these sharks, because as we know that with a little bit more understanding of these fish, there may be a little bit more encouragement to keep a few more of them in the water. You know, sharks getting a lot of fishing pressure at the moment. It has its place.
In Australia, there's a heated conversation about it. We have a number of issues. So we've had a great white eat an ocean swimmer alive. And it wasn't a mistaken identity or all that bullshit. It came in and it smashed this guy as he's swimming. He's probably only 50 meters off the rocks, swimming out open ocean, and it's absolutely smashed him. And then the guy's still alive, I believe, and struggling, and the sharks come back in and finish the job. Proper ate him alive, left a small part of his torso and part of his arm, and ate the rest of him. Proper ate this guy alive. So some of the stuff you hear, it's just a mistaken identity. They don't like eating us. It was kind of a little bit dispelled. Not that it's a common behavior, but it does happen. And then in South Australia, a number of Spearos have been attacked over the years, and WA as well. Bull sharks seem to be a problem here too. And then we have the shark, the lines that are out to, catch these guys in nets and stuff. And a lot of Spearos hate it, and rightfully so. And then some people are just kind of well, what value do you put on human life? And it's a massive, massive shit fight. I know in New Zealand there's a lot of Riley Elliott's done a lot to sort of sway people's perception towards preserving sharks and stuff, but it is a big conversation.
Yeah, it is a big one. It is a big one. I'm very on the fence. Not on the fence. I've got a foot on both sides of the line in regards to that. I've got when I went to university, which is when I first started spearfishing in Wellington, I studied marine biology just so I could align my work with the ocean, and just sort of having that sort of scientific understanding of these fish, but also at the same time being in that community that could be impacted if the population were to explode, or if there was going to be an interaction. Yeah, it's a hard one. I think over here in New Zealand, we don't have the population. We don't have the population of people on the water. Same as Australia. You guys have got a lot of people on your coastlines there. At the same time, the sharks that are here are feeding on different things. We've also potentially different water temperatures on where we are. Stewart Island gets pretty bloody cold in the middle of winter. Well, not in the middle of winter, even during the season that they are here. So whether they're very well fed when they're here, or maybe when they are here, they're not here to potentially feed. Maybe it's more of a breeding thing. Maybe the water temperature slows down their metabolism so much that they don't need to eat as much. They're not as voracious.
Yeah.
And also, you've also got to think about the changes in what's going on with your fisheries over there. Maybe something's going on and maybe they are having to come in closer. I did hear a theory that based on the humpback whale migration.
Yeah.
It took a real hammering back in the day, and they're still starting to crawl back up, and they're doing really well now to almost not quite natural populations, but the population is exploding. And during their migrations, with a smaller population sitting a little bit further offshore, imagine a smaller channel, a smaller stream of humpbacks migrating, but now that it's so big, their ranges, they're migrating a lot closer to shore, potentially.
Yeah.
I know that the sharks do have that migration as a part of their as a part of their life cycle in terms of they follow the whales, they eat the afterbirth, they eat the sick and the dead whales, and that's a part of their.
I like how you're not overly simplistic with any of this shit, Sam. Like you see the nuance and the rich context and multiple contributing factors to this conversation, and I think that's not done enough. Like I don't think people want to talk about all of the factors enough. We want to have these overly simply heuristics that either sharks are sharks and who gives a shit about them, let's kill them, or sharks are these wonderful animals that we must appreciate and fuck humans, we shouldn't be there anyway. And it's like, between those two ideas, there's a whole lot more going on, people. Like, and I just wish we'd have the conversation a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. If it gets to the point, man, where they are a problem, we're going to have to do something about it. But with those humpback whales, their migration is a hell of a lot closer to shore. That's bringing the sharks into where everybody's cruising and swimming around. I went out to Byron, with that Gold Coast with the family, and man, I was blown away. Humpback whales jumping everywhere. It was primo. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different factors that need to be thought about. But I know that a few areas down here are starting to see a lot more. We're starting to see heaps more great whites, and that's a recent thing. So that we're talking over the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So I think that's the change in our commercial fishing practice as well. In terms of cameras on commercial vessels, they are an endangered species. But I think we've also changed legislation on shark finning as well. In terms of
is there a commercial shark fishery in New Zealand still?
Yeah, man. Yep. But the whole animal has to be utilised now. Can't just, if you're going to take anything, you're going to have to trunk the animal out. Fins can be exported if a whole carcass is taken out. But great whites are fully protected.
Yeah.
But I think it was a bit easier if they've accidentally killed a shark to cut the line or whatever. There was no real effort to put them back alive.